You ever have a day where you open your door and realize your life's about to turn into a courtroom drama? Except no one gave you the script, and the villain wears perfume so strong it could melt chrome off a bumper? That was me, Marcus Kellerman. The morning Delilah Hutchcraft showed up with a bill for $3,200 in HOA fees for a neighborhood I never joined. A neighborhood built around my family's farmhouse like some kind of plastic suburbia octopus wrapping its tentacles around history. I didn't know then she'd send fake cops to arrest me, or that I'd wind up at the center of a war that would tear the mask off everything rotten in Willowbrook Estates. But I'll tell you this much. When you back a grieving mechanic into a corner, don't be surprised if you end up steamrolled. Let me back up a sec. 6 months ago, I thought I'd found peace, or at least the closest thing you get after losing your wife to cancer and living out of suitcases for a year. My grandmother Rose left me her old stone farmhouse, 3 acres on the edge of Millbrook County, where the morning air smells like sawdust and motor oil and the oak trees are older than any neighbor's lawn gnome. I figured I'd hide out, fix engines, maybe fix myself, until the day the world's most aggressive clipboard came knocking. Delilah had the HOA president look down to a science. White Escalade, gym clothes, French tips gripping a stack of violation notices like a weapon, eyes scanning my property for nonconformity like a TSA agent on bonus pay. Mr. Kellerman, you owe $3,000 in HOA fees. County rezoned. Everyone's included. Don't bother arguing. We have standards here. The way she smiled, you'd think she was doing me a favor while plotting my public execution. I pulled out the deed. Property's been in my family since 1945. No HOA signature anywhere, and my barn's older than most houses on her street. Doesn't matter, she chirped. The rules changed. That's when I knew. This wasn't about grass length. It was about power. I tried the reasonable thing, said I'd mow better, told her I didn't want their landscaping or their pool. She slid a legal notice into my hand like a blackjack dealer, all cream paper and veiled threats. 30 days to comply, or we put a lien on your property. And I have friends downtown. The way she said it, you'd think she ran the whole county. But here's the thing, my grandma survived the Great Depression on this land. I wasn't about to let some paper-pushing suburban Napoleon take it away. That night, I turned my kitchen into a war room. Property surveys, tax records, my grandma's notes on water rights. I found a detail I'd missed. Not only did my property boundaries predate the HOA by 80 years, but the Willowbrook Corporation had filed paperwork wrong, and according to county records, my land stretched 30 feet further than any of them realized, right under their precious HOA office. That's when the script flipped. You know what I mean? Sometimes the quiet guy with oil under his nails is sitting on the biggest secret in town. Within 48 hours, Delilah escalated from threats to performance art. 2 guys in blue polos, badges on lanyards you could win at a carnival, showing up at my door claiming to be county code enforcement. They tossed me citations for commercial vehicles, noise violations, and unapproved structure, which turned out to be my grandfather's barn. But their badges looked about as real as monopoly money, and when I called the county, the clerk told me flat out, "We don't have a zoning enforcement department." Just like that, Delilah graduated from petty tyranny to felonious impersonation. Sheriff's Deputy Martinez took one look at my evidence, photos of badges, license plate numbers, the whole bit, and told me to install cameras. "People that bold don't back down easy," he said. I spent the next morning running cables, putting up enough security to make my late wife proud. By that afternoon, Delilah's smear campaign was in full swing. Next door alerts about dangerous behavior, rumors about me running an illegal junkyard. Even Mrs. Patterson, the 78-year-old with the world's best snickerdoodles, shuffled over to warn me. "That woman's got the new folks twisted up," she whispered, cookies in hand. "She says you're bringing down the neighborhood." I just smiled and promised her some fresh eggs next time my chickens laid. But Delilah wanted a show. She called an emergency HOA meeting, and I showed up with my grandmother's deed, black and white photos of the original farm, and a manila folder thick with evidence. The community center was packed, neighbors craning to see the troublemaker. "Excuse me," I said, loud enough for the whole room. "I'd like to clarify some things about my land." Delilah tried to shout me down, called security, but the truth had a different plan. When I showed those old photos, my grandmother planting tomatoes where the office now sat, people started asking questions. "I never signed your HOA agreement," I said. My family's been here longer than Willowbrooks had streetlights. The mood changed, doubt crept in, and I could see Delilah's grip loosening. She wasn't done, filed a police complaint, claimed I threatened her, tried to sic the real authorities on me. But Officer Johnson just shook his head. Document everything. Avoid direct confrontation, he said. We've had other complaints about this HOA. The real kicker came later that night. He hinted that the office building might be on my land after all. I hired Peterson Land Surveying, spent $200 I couldn't spare, but what they found was worth every penny. My property ran right through the middle of the HOA office, and no amount of Delilah's paperwork could change that. That night, I realized Delilah wasn't just overreaching. She was trespassing on my land, and if I played my cards right, I could blow her operation sky high. The next day, she doubled down, parking her Escalade in my driveway, ordering a crew to rip out my mailbox because it violated community standards. I called the post office, and the supervisor practically laughed. Federal offense. Install your mailbox wherever you want. That night, I cemented in the heaviest cast iron mailbox Home Depot sells, my name engraved right on the side. Message sent. Delilah came back with legal threats, cease and desist letters from a law firm that probably existed only in a Google Doc, claims that my oak trees were lowering property values, you name it. But my attorney, David Blackwood, had seen it all. They can't enforce HOA rules on non-members, he said. If their office is on your land, you're sitting on a gold mine, and they're in trouble. Then the vandalism started, slashed tires, spray paint on my cameras. But what Delilah didn't know, I had hidden backups, and the footage caught her and her cronies red-handed at 2:47 a.m. Detective Williams from the fraud unit called a week later. Your case fits a pattern, he said. We're looking at insurance fraud, organized harassment, possibly more. You're not alone. He showed me photos. 5 other families in the county had suffered the same attacks after refusing to join HOAs managed by Willowbrook. My little fight was suddenly a big deal. That's when Jake Morrison, the HOA treasurer, reached out. Nervous, sweating, eyes darting around the diner. Marcus, something's wrong with the books. Tens of thousands missing, contracts to companies no one's ever seen, payouts to Delilah's family. He handed me copies, evidence of theft so bold it'd make a mobster blush. The office building? I asked. It's not on HOA land, Jake whispered. It's on yours. Everything signed in that building is illegal. My attorney put the pieces together. Delilah had built the HOA office on my property, then used a shell company to rent it back to the HOA at inflated rates, all paid out of homeowners' pockets. She avoided taxes, funneled money to relatives, even filed fake insurance claims after orchestrating the vandalism. We filed a quiet title action to reclaim the land and started prepping evidence for the fraud unit. The twist? Delilah tried to bribe me, showed up in my living room with a $50,000 check, shaking, perfume so thick you could cut it with a knife. Take the money, drop the lawsuit, sign an NDA, and this all goes away. I recorded every word. So, you admit there's a boundary issue with the office? Her voice cracked. It can be adjusted. Let's keep this quiet, Marcus. She left when I refused, not realizing she'd just handed me the smoking gun. Delilah panicked, filed restraining orders, mailed anonymous threats, printed flyers calling me a menace. She even tried to burn down my workshop, but the fireproof safe survived, and so did the evidence. Detective Williams confirmed. Arson, bribery, fraud, all connected. The neighborhood began to rally. Mrs. Patterson brought over documents from the 1940s. Jake delivered more records, and Sarah Pohl's son, an investigative reporter, started digging into statewide HOA corruption. Delilah made one last move, called a board meeting to dissolve the HOA before the law caught up, but Jake had already turned over the financials to the DA. The story hit local news, then national headlines. By the time I walked into the community center for the final confrontation, it was standing room only, neighbors, reporters, law enforcement, all waiting for justice. I stood up with the property survey, showed everyone the boundary line running right through the office. My family's owned this land since 1945. The HOA's been trespassing for years. And here's where your fees went. Contracts to Delilah's shell companies. Cash paid out to her family, thousands stolen. The room buzzed as copies were passed around, anger boiling over. Mrs. Patterson stood and spoke, her voice ringing through the hall. This man lost his wife, and came here for peace. Instead, you turned his home into a battlefield. The applause shook the walls. And then, the clincher, I played the audio recording of Delilah offering hush money, her own words sealing her fate. Detective Martinez stepped forward, badge out. Delilah Hutchcraft, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, bribery, and obstruction of justice. The look on her face was pure shock, the empire she built collapsing in front of a crowd that once feared her. But this isn't just a story about beating one bully. It's about what comes after. With Delilah gone, the neighborhood voted to dissolve the corrupt HOA, form a real association, and build everything on transparency. The office building, once a symbol of her greed, became a community center, free legal clinics, automotive classes for teens, senior tech workshops. Mrs. Patterson set up a historical exhibit. Sarah's article sparked statewide investigations, and Jake became the first honest HOA president Willowbrook ever had. 6 months later, I woke up to laughter. Kids playing soccer where manicured lawns used to be battlegrounds, parents chatting without fear, old rivals sharing coffee. We recovered most of the stolen money, started a scholarship for trade school students, and property values actually went up. Turns out, trust is good for business. Me? I still fix engines, but now I get calls from all over, FBI agents, lawyers, even folks in Alaska fighting their own HOAs. And I teach kids how to stand up for themselves, document everything, and never back down from a fight worth having. My late wife would have loved seeing this. Justice, healing, neighbors turning into family. If you're out there fighting an HOA nightmare, remember, document everything, build allies, and don't let bullies write the ending. Drop your story in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from, and let's keep this fight alive. Who knows? Maybe your battle will be the next chapter in proving that ordinary people can beat the system when they stand together. And stick around, because next week, I'll tell you how a school principal almost got away with $400,000 until the PTA mom turned out to be an undercover accountant. You really can't make this stuff up. So yeah, sometimes the best revenge is just telling the truth with receipts.